name's Yvonne Maxkin. I'm the founder and chair of the channel community and also the founder and CEO of CoCheer, a coaching and consulting practice, and also a channel community gold supporter. Welcome to the next episode of Smashing the Class Ceiling. In this series, I'll be interviewing and showcasing some of the fantastic individuals we have in the channel who've all come from a low socio-economic background, but have gone on to build incredibly successful careers. They will be sharing their stories of how they navigated the corporate corridors and smashed through the class ceiling. So without delay, I would like to welcome my very next guest, Richard Eglon. Richard is the Chief Marketing Officer at Nebula Global Services, a chartered marketeer, an advisory board member, a judge for the CRN Sales Marketing Awards, and also a channel buddy and channel community committee member, and also our partnership lead. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Yvonne.
So thank you, Richard, again for agreeing to come to the podcast and share your story with us. So I'm very lucky to have known you for some time, and more recently we've spent quite a bit of time together working on the channel community, and obviously with Nebula being a gold supporter, even more time on the partnership side. So I have quite a good understanding of your background, but most people won't know where you've come from. So can we just start with that? Tell me about where you grew up and talk to me about your early career.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you, Yvonne, and thank you for inviting me onto the podcast. I've been looking forward to sort of sharing this conversation with you because, as you said, we've known each other for a while now and got to know each other. But I mean, from my perspective, yeah, I grew up in a small fishing town on the northeast Yorkshire coast, a place called Whitby. Sort of back in the 70s, and yeah, that was sort of a fantastic childhood, great place to grow up, right near the coast, but a very simple existence at the same time, which was part of that. So, I suppose from that background, both my parents were really hardworking people. My mum at sort of mid-70s still works in the local shop, right? So you can't keep a good lady down, but yeah, I mean, just hard-working sort of environment was just normal for me. So growing up in Whitby, I mean, yeah, my mum had 7. I think on the count I did the other day, she had 7 jobs at one point, right? Did my mum? So she was smashing it, sort of back in the 70s and 80s, just really because her work ethic came from her parents, and that sort of flowed through. And we lived in a what sounds quite luxurious, but it wasn't. We had a 5-bedroom house that my mum and dad put a lot of time and effort into sort of renovating over the years, and actually what helped fuel that was we'd turn it into a bed and breakfast in the summer season, right? So we had a 5-bedroom house. We'd have up to 10 people in this house in summertime, and this was before the time of ensuite, right? So we had one toilet, 1 bathroom for 10 people. So yes, and the guests always got the priority over me. So, but no, we met great people through that. It was very. We talk about community-led initiatives now, and that was very much. It was always a welcoming house, a warm house. The front door was never locked. It was just people came and went. So I think if anything, that very much installed that work ethic that actually took me and held me in good stead, which we'll come on to. But my first business I set up at 13.
Wow.
So, yeah. So my business was with a friend. We had a great idea, or we thought it was a great idea, was to set up a car wash business. So this was a door-to-door car wash business.
Brilliant.
So we equipped ourselves with all the bits out of our parents' sort of sheds and garages, and we went with our bucket and chamois, and we did a door-to-door car wash business. I think it cost £2 for inside and out, right? So, but as some of us will remember back then, everybody used to smoke in a car, right?
Oof,
and
yeah.
everybody, so people didn't look after the cars like they do today, and so let's just say that £2 probably cost us about 4 hours of our time doing the inside and out. But the main reason for that was to yeah, earn a little bit of pocket money, I guess. But more, it was about that piece of having achieved something and being proud of the end product. You know, when we walked away from that house, you know, we wanted that car to be the cleanest on the street, and that meant a lot to us. And it's only when you look back now of, you know, the reasons for doing these things that you sort of realize what makes you who you are today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame I'm not still doing it because my car could do with a really good clean. So
Well, I'll make a note. I'll make a note. It probably take me longer than 4 hours these days. I'm not as quick as I was then,
very
but yeah,
entrepreneurial at such a young age as well, and you know, those sort of aspirations to work hard from an early age has obviously stood you in really good stead.
yeah. I think it's not until you get older, is it, that you probably just analyze and doing things like this of sort of what makes you who you are and why you've become who you are as well. And I think, yeah, I can categorically say, you know, yeah, I wasn't, you know, I was never sort of going on a ski trip like some people at the private school down the road. I was never, you know, we didn't have a car until I was 14, right? And, you know, things like that. But it never made me unhappy. I never went without anything. And what I saw from my mum and dad working long hours and really providing is, you know, we had a beautiful house. The money they earned went back into, as I said, renovating the house. It was always immaculate. There was always standards. Yeah, and what I could see is more effort and work that went in and more money that was earned. We could do nicer things. So that's what made us be able to buy a car. You know, like I say, when I was 14, or go on. You know, we were actually the one differentiator, which was very important to my dad, who had a sort of an outdoor labor related job, which was very difficult, especially in the winter months up in the North Yorkshire coast. Was Yeah, he wanted to have his one holiday a year overseas, and he wanted it in the sun where it was warm. And that was their purpose. Their purpose in terms of doing the job, as well as, you know, the family first, obviously, but second was, we're going to try and do, and we used to go on teletext and get last minute deals, and, you know, do whatever we could. But we did whatever we could. My parents did too. So I was very fortunate. You know, I went to Yugoslavia and, you know, Spain and Portugal and many places. So even though we're from sort of that low socioeconomic background, actually the hard work, what it showed me is, if you put hard work and you're tenacious and you're resilient, once you start earning money, it becomes very liberating, as it gives you some freedoms and choices.
Choices, yeah, that's, I think, yeah, and liberation, like you said, a bit more independence
Yeah.
and control over your own life and get to do some of the more fun stuff. So tell me about the early, I know you've obviously touched on your first job as a car wash, well, first company actually, so that's quite impressive.
Yeah.
How did you go from doing car washing to ending up in the IT channel?
Yeah. Probably like most of us, there's always a story behind it, right? How do any of us end up in the IT channel? But no, for me, you know, at 16, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. Believe it or not, yeah, my ambition is, my heart was set on being a fighter pilot. And yeah, I was devastated when I found out. Obviously, I've got sort of relatively poor eyesight, and, you know, I only noticed it as I was getting older and starting to read a book, and things going a bit blurry by halfway down the page. But and at the time, you know, going in the RAF as a fighter pilot, you needed 20/20 vision. You know, it probably wasn't quite as inclusive as it will be today, and there was less technology out there. So for me, I had to quickly adapt, I guess. I had to quickly, something I was very passionate and wanted to do, and I had my heart set on for a few years prior to that. Obviously, still being relatively young as well. But I came across at school, I remember it clearly, was a poster on the wall. So unlike now, it's probably more virtual and more of a digital social wall. This was probably the physical social wall I used to get, and everything for colleges and etc. were based sort of on pin boards right then, and everything else. So that sort of poster that I saw that day was a course in graphic design. So that graphic design posted, attracted my eye. It was very visual, as you'd expect. But more importantly, actually, when you started reading the description of what we'd be getting involved with doing the design course, that was me. Like within seconds, I'd decided, right, that's what I want to do. So I embarked on that, and fast forward a number of years, through university as well, doing graphic design. I ended up getting my sort of first role down here on the south coast, where I'm based today. So I bought a car. I packed up the car. In 3 days, I was starting my first job for a telecoms business down on the south coast, very close to where IBM's headquarters were. So through a bit of telecoms and into sort of unified comms and IP telephony, I worked with a group of people at a business through that sort of tenure, which were the people who eventually set up Comscare. So they wanted me to go in and help them from the marketing side and help sort of build that brand. And that was exciting because that was a startup. It literally was out of our MD's garage at home. It was up in Cheshire, and that was a really exciting moment in time for us. And we had a great team. I think that's very important, is having that great team around you, people who've got that energy and that willingness to succeed and be very resilient, because there's a lot more harder days than good days when you're building a business, as you will know. It's very difficult. So that's really, I suppose, Comscare was my first sort of stepping into the IT channels with those guys.
Fantastic. And what do you think the biggest challenges that you faced in your career, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, when I look back, and you don't realize when you're sort of in the eye of the storm, if you like, and they talk about inside the tornado, whatever the terms are. It was getting a balance between my career and my personal life was definitely the biggest challenge, because as you go through your 20s into your 30s, you're on sort of a bit of a fast track of wanting to learn more and progress and get another promotion, and even though I didn't have the hunger for the job title or the promotion in that sense, I just enjoyed what I do. That sort of naturally came, if that makes sense. Being recognized for the work I was doing, which I was fortunate to be in that position. So, but trying to then, you're at that moment in time when you've got a young family, that age generally, and you've got your first house or whatever those life sort of challenges are. At the same time, you're probably at your busiest time in your career. So you've got these two juxtapositions fighting one another all the time. And when you're in it, you just get on and do it. And I think that's what most people do. But it's only when you look back and reflect on that period that actually it's very difficult. And also you can easily get swayed within that journey as well. And the one thing, I suppose, from my perspective, is just trying to stay true to myself and who Richard was back at the car wash business. I wanted to be proud in doing a good job for somebody. I wanted to be paid well and sort of and have an outcome that I could be sort of proud of and talk to and share that experience with my friend, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that you're always wanting to do. So sometimes as you get I guess more senior and you move into more senior roles, you sometimes, and this hasn't happened to me too much, but you sometimes end up doing less of what you enjoy and what you're really good at, and more of the political side of things and the other nonsense that gets in the way. And I think trying to be true to yourself can be very difficult in those scenarios at times. So I would say they were a couple of the main ones.
Yeah, definitely. When you go from individual contributor to manager and then senior leader, it comes with a completely different set of challenges. And yeah, you're right, you can't you have to be really good at playing the politic game, and being mindful about what you say and how you say it and stuff like that. It's a completely different skill set, and not, nobody's born to be in that position. You have to learn it. And I know, coming from organizations that you have, like myself, you don't get given the support and training necessarily needed to go on that journey, right? So yeah, no, I agree. I think that's probably one of the areas that I was personally challenged with myself. So it makes a lot of sense. What has been the proudest moment of your career, and why?
Oh, wow. Proudest moment of my career to date. Hopefully there'll be more proud moments, fingers crossed. But yeah, I think for me, there's probably a couple, if I may. I think the first one was the comms care journey. I referenced comms care. Now, to take that from a startup and all the challenges we had, growing a business in the first few years that many businesses experience, and turning it into something which was sort of the market leader around Cisco services in the UK at the time. And then acquired by Ingram Micro. Being part of that journey and one cog in the machine, if you like, and being part of that leadership team. That was a proud moment. That definitely was a proud moment. And I would say sort of equally as proud, but just different, is sort of my journey with over at Agilitas, where rather than a startup, that was more obviously as a scale-up operation, and that was my first introduction to the private equity world. And so lots of new skills, lots of new ways of working, lots of new sort of, I suppose, motivations to want to go on that journey. And again, we became the market leader in the space that we serve there, and that was more from an international, European, international, and UK perspective. So it feels like the two things have had a natural progression, but all have been both very proud moment, but in very different ways.
No, they're both amazing. So congratulations. And obviously, being part of the channel community has got to be one of them too, right?
Yeah. Well, let's see where this goes. And now we're pick as well. It's yeah, I can't take the plaudits for that. That's down to you and the other guys. But no, the things like the channel community and the other bits I like to be involved with around awards and advisory boards. This is all about continuing to learn. The channel community is a great example. I had a message the other day from somebody I've been speaking with, and and that person was going through quite a difficult time in their career, and the message was very much a case of because of a chat we had, that person has now been able to sort of focus their efforts on something new, and it was just a simple thank you. And I didn't think I'd done much, right? But just to be there and be a sounding board in confidence, and some people just sometimes need that sort of neutrality, and somebody just to share that their thoughts and ideas with, who also understand the industry as well. And I think things like that, what the channel community, and that's one example of obviously dozens that the rest of the get involved with. So yeah, fantastic.
No, brilliant. And how do you think coming from a low socioeconomic background has impacted your career, either positively? I mean, from what you've said, I think that's probably going to steer more positively, or negatively. Some people haven't had the best experiences.
Yeah, because we're always dealt with how we should speak, how we should act, how we should behave, and yeah, I've obviously come at it from I was a northern lad who moved south, right? And back in the 90s, we call it banter. I don't know what it would be now. We probably don't. It wouldn't be allowed, and probably rightly so. But we had banter with Northerners, with Scottish people, with people from Wales or the South, Cockneys, right? It just we just all found a way. We all found a way, and that's different for my children now, and society evolves, and rightly so. So that's fine. But yeah, I think one thing, definitely the strong work ethic is one of the areas which has really meant that when I get involved with something, I've got to be emotionally attached to it, and I've got to keep going back to the car wash example, but I want to walk away from that business or that job or that project I've done, and just be proud. I've done that final bit of polishing with the chamois. I've really made a difference and left an air freshener inside, or so you can't smell the smoke. But whatever those things are, that's just a pride thing. That's just
Yeah.
a pride, and that definitely came from my parents, without a doubt. And that's all I'm trying to install in, with my children is be who you want to be, but do it with the right behaviours, right? And so I'd say that I think also treasure what you have. I think when
Gratitude.
when you haven't come from a place of privilege, let's say, you really treasure what you have, and when you achieve it or when you obtain it. So I look after everything I own, from a car to a watch, or whether it's a pair of shoes. I treasure everything, and my wife will say, "Oh, you're a bit protective over those things." I'm like, "No, I value that I've been able to afford to do that, and I'm going to look after it." And
Yeah.
when we used to do a car boot sale, our children's toys used to sell before anyone else's because they're in such good condition, right?
Yeah.
So that's something I take a great pride in. I think everything has a value, and you should give value to everything and everybody. So, and that helps you look after those things. I think it's live in and not for the moment, if that makes sense. So yeah, we all talk about sort of live in the moment now, and it's a very it's important, but it shouldn't be live for that moment in terms of something we think we should be doing. This is just live in the moment you're in now. I will live this moment with this sort of discussion and interview with yourself. So that's important. I think having no sense of entitlement is made me who I
Yeah.
am. I had to work for everything, and that's not a chip on my shoulder. And people can't choose how they're born into this world and what surrounds them, but they can choose who they're going to be as part of help along the way.
Yeah.
Important. I think I always have this sense of failure that keeps me hungry and keeps me on top. And what I mean by failure, I don't really want to go backwards. Yeah, I've worked really hard to get where I am today, and I don't mean that just from an economic perspective, but very much in my own personal pride and reputation, where I don't want that to be tarnished in any way. So, I think that idea of this sort of, it's probably not failure, right? But in my mind, it would be is what keeps me hungry, and I think finally it'd be I don't suffer fools. I think my background means I don't suffer fools. I'm generally, touch wood, a very I can work people out fairly quickly. I understand who I want to be around and who I don't. So yeah, probably those things are as an accumulation of the things that have made me, my sort of background of growing up has made me the person I am today.
Yeah, gratitude to me is definitely one. I think you're so grateful for everything that you have and so appreciative of everything because you've had to work so hard for it. You don't take anything for granted. I mean, I still have pinch me moments. Like I still sit there and going, how has this happened? How am I in this position? And, I'm always very mindful that even though I've got to the position I'm in, there are a lot of my friends that are not in that position. And so you keeps you humble and the humility side to it. And even my daughter, it's really difficult because obviously we're in a position now where our kids get way more opportunities than we ever did, but it's trying to teach them the values that we had instilled in us that we can then pass on. And I see it in my daughter that if she's had to save up and work and earn money to buy something, she has much more appreciative, like she's more appreciative of it. She takes good care of it. And it's testament to the fact that you know, those values that we've grew up with that have done us well, have served us well, have obviously, you know, it's testament to what we're trying to pass on to our children.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, Yvonne, and I think to that example, like with your daughter, yeah, I grew up with a very simple. I could earn whatever I wanted to earn, as I sort of had part-time jobs in hotels or cafes or, you know, like bars, what we've all done. But yeah, while I was sort of, before I became an adult, it was very much, you can spend half of what you earn and the other half's going in a savings account, right? Because my parents always had to work hard for that money, it was important that they were savers as well. And I've tried to install that same sort of, I suppose, methodology, if you like, into my children. And my daughter, who's now 17, you know, she's got a great job. She's the lead coach for Little Kickers down on the south coast, and I think
Amazing.
she's the youngest female head coach of doing that job. I think she became sort of head coach when she just turned 16. So, you know, those things, but the money she earns from doing that has given her freedoms, and she understands the value of money. Again, it's putting a value on everything, isn't it? I think that's
Yeah.
important.
No, absolutely. So, knowing what you know now and what you've achieved, what would you say to a younger version of yourself?
Well, okay. I think, yeah, that's a really good question. I think looking back, if it was sort of Richard back in my early 20s, it's probably believe in yourself. I think you know, we always talk about, you know, you got to believe in yourself and be, and that's being confident without the arrogance. It's about having the right behaviors still. So I think that's important. I think surrounding yourself with positive, like mind, in my case, positive, like-minded people. I think the one connection in that for me is you've got to trust them implicitly. So those people you surround yourselves with, like your family, right? Your family and your close friends. You want that sort of close network of people. You don't have to be best friends with your colleagues,
Yeah.
but if you can trust those people in business, that's great. Um, Build your network. You know, the bit I didn't really understand probably at that age, I was probably doing it in the hospitality jobs I did. I had a great social network in terms of I just got on with people and like to hear their stories and where they come from in the bar or whatever it might have been. But actually, in business, have a more conscious, I suppose, program to go and build your network from a professional perspective as well. I think that's important. And I guess finally is like everything, going back to what we were talking about before, is just finding a balance. I think life is all about a balance. I think sometimes it tips too far one way and another time it be too far the other, which is fine. But if you can get a sort of a threshold where the balance is pretty good most of the time, and that varies through different ages, but I think quicker you understand that, it probably gives you a bit more focus on what to concentrate on as a young
Mm.
person to employment.
Yeah. So, believe in yourself,
Yeah,
network.
yeah.
And what was the last one? I've forgotten it.
No. It's surrounding yourself with like-minded,
There you go.
positive people in it,
Surround
and
yourself with like minded people. Yeah.
who you can trust, right? Who
Who
you
you
can trust. That's
trust.
very important. That's very important.
Love it. And what support and help do you think companies could do to help individuals that are coming into their organizations from a low social economic background?
Yeah, I think what's encouraging first and foremost, I think there's a lot of companies in our space who are really recognizing this. And over the last couple of years, I think since the pandemic, this has accelerated even more because there's people fighting over the better people more and more. So companies need to look outside of the traditional channels to find the talent that
Hmm.
is there to talent. So I think people, people who can bring that resilience, that sort of that work ethic, that sort of they want to be associated with something that's successful and has the right values behind it. So I think companies are now starting to see the real value in that. I think when you speak to a number of sort of whether it's recruiters or other sort of business leaders, they've got some really good programs now out there which are tapping into local schools, sharing experiences of somebody moving into the IT channel. I think what you've got to do with all this is make it real. And I think sort of case studies of people going in to a school or a college or a youth centre or wherever it might be, you've got to get out there in front of the people to make those changes. And I think it's about giving back. I think it's about putting some effort into that. So I think there's a combination of the company, what companies can do, but what the individuals and business leaders in those companies, they're going to be the real drivers of this, not policy of the company.
Yeah. You can't be what you can't see, and obviously lead by example as well, you know. And I think one of the things I've discovered through my journey recently of looking a bit more detailed around the social mobility piece is that people have sort of been ashamed to talk about their background. It's sort of one of the things they've been trying to shy away from, as in it's not something that they like to discuss because of embarrassment or fear of being found out, or, you know, because they've spent all these years trying to hide it. Yet when I talk to people across the industry that I've managed, you know, I've spent a lot of time with recently, actually it's their background that have impacted them the most in their career. And so by them sharing their stories, now they're feeling more empowered to sort of push, you know, hold their hand back and drag people, you know, pull them up with them.
Yeah.
And some of that is age as well. You know, I think, like you said earlier, the older you get, the less you care about what other people think. And also, when you've achieved it, it's just like, well, you know, no one can question where I've, you know, come from anymore. So you become more confident to be sort of open about it. But yeah, no, that's sound advice. Thank you. And my last question for you, what one piece of advice would you give to someone from a low social economic background who is trying to navigate a career in the channel?
Oh, okay. I think, you know, sort of just thinking back through what we've just sort of been speaking about, I think you've got to be yourself, number one. You've got to be yourself. That doesn't mean you keep learning, you keep developing, and you keep adding on new skills, because you know I'm someone different today than I will be tomorrow, right? It's but you've got to be receptive of that change, and I think that's fine. But you know, be proud of who you are. You know, be proud of where you come from. Be proud of, you know, the things that maybe your parents, you know, or you know, I think it's all about behavior. I don't think, you know, I don't think money drives sort of the right behaviors. I think it's got to come from within. I think money gives people choices, as you said, more money, of course it does. But actually, you've got to stay true to yourself and what you know, what is important. So, you know, I've always said I've had a high moral compass with the decisions I've made in my career. Has been very much from a strong moral compass perspective. And you know, could I have earned more money? Could I have done this? Yeah, of course, I probably could, but I wouldn't have been sort of true to myself.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would have given me any more happiness or anything different in my life. So, no, I you know, I'm looking forward to, you know, what the next 10, 20 years brings for me, and being part of different communities and different people is a big conscious effort that I've done to get out of probably my comfort zone, just to keep sort of feeding that information into, you know, new learning. So yeah, be yourself and be proud of who you are.
Love it. Thank you. Richard, you have well and truly smashed the class ceiling. Thank you very much for sharing your story. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne.